Chapter 76 Ygritte. First bonus chapter of the week. Bolton lands. POV of Domeric Bolton. Domeric planted the sapling on the ground and then started drawing runes around it. Runes would make it grow at a far faster rate than an average plant so that the weirwood sapling would reach the size of a 2 to 3 story building in a matter of months instead of the usual decades. Once he was done with the runes, he took out his wand and cast a few powerful charms on the ground to make it more fertile. "What are you doing?" the red-haired girl of about his age asked from behind him. He turned around and rolled his eyes to her. "What does it look like I'm doing, Ygritte? It looks to me like you're using your stick to do your dark voodoo magic on the little plant. Are you going to turn it into a little rabbit too?" she asked as she sat down and looked curiously at the sapling he had just planted. "No, that rabbit transfiguration. It was a one-time thing. And it's not dark voodoo magic. Where do you even learn such things from?" he asked in exasperation. The girl shrugged, not deigning to answer him. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "What, planting the saplings?" he asked. She nodded. "It's a hobby of mine," he said and shrugged. "What's a hobby?" she asked. "Is it something you can eat?" He opened his mouth to speak, but then closed it once again and thought about it as he spoke. "A hobby is something you do in your free time for your enjoyment." "Like fucking?" Ygritte asked, and he opened his mouth once again before he closed it and gave her a look. "Aren't you a bit too young to know about it?" he asked, and as he asked that question, he wondered if fucking counted as a hobby. True, it was something that people do in their free time for their enjoyment, but there was so much more to the act of having sex than that. The girl scoffed at him. "Your lordlings sit in your towers and think that not talking about things makes you so much better than us. How do you think your mother had you? By being fucked by your father. That's how." Yeah, he really didn't need that image in his mind. He doubted that he would be able to think about James and Lily the same way ever again. "Don't you have to go to school?" he asked, and the girl ducked her head and looked away. "Does Carsey know that you're skipping your classes?" Again. Indeed, one of the few conditions that he had given to the free folk before they came to his lands was that they would have to send their children to the school he had created outside Dreadfort. Creating a building for it, along with the uniforms and books, providing food and black slates for the students, and paying and providing for the teachers were just a few of the things he needed to do in order to start a school in this medieval world. It was nothing compared to Hogwarts, a place that he studied at for 7 years. But it was a start, and he wanted the free folk children as well as the children living in Dreadfort and the surrounding areas to come to school to learn. And since he was the lord of his lands, his word was the law, especially if he himself provided books, uniforms, and food for the children. Aunt Barbary never quite saw the benefit of having a school and teaching small folk things beyond their station, and considered it a waste of his wealth, but this was one of the few things that he didn't budge on. "It's boring, and a waste of time anyway," Ygritte complained while kicking a stone. "It's not like learning how to write a fancy letter is going to fill my stomach at the end of the day." He looked at her and let out a sigh. "Since you're here, you might as well come and help me with this instead of being idle," he said as he took out another sapling from inside his bottomless pouch. "Sure." She shrugged and started taking out the dirt with a shovel. Well, whatever you might say about the free folk, they at least didn't shy away from hard work. It was probably why he gave them 10,000 cattle and 20,000 sheep, 20,000 goats, and 1,000 horses to tend. The unfortunate fact about them living in the true north was that the land there was always covered with snow, so they couldn't plant anything on the earth, which led to them being totally ignorant about farming. But what they did have was the experience of tending to the goats and cows that were able to survive in the cold and the knowledge to make clothes and other essentials from the bodies of those animals. This was why instead of giving them free land to farm, he instead provided them with animals that they could easily look after. He might have to provide them with some food for now, but once they're set up, he would start receiving a steady supply of milk, beef, leather, and manure from them. And for those men among the free folk who still wanted to fight and pillage, he conscripted them in his hidden army, which has now grown up to 2,500 infantry, 1,000 archers, and 500 cavalries. The leader of the free folk in his lands, Carsey told him the free folk who live in these new lands are content with their life a lot. He was glad to hear that. It seems that so far, the risk he'd taken to bring free folk within his lands was paying off. Then he remembered the 2,000-something people that he rejected and left behind in Hardhome due to their violent nature and wondered if they'd cause trouble for him down the line. Even if they did decide to get violent, it was not like they would be any problem for him as long as the wall stands between the north and the true north. Chapter 77 Monthly Report. Dreadfort Castle. POV of Domeric Bolton. "All right, Give me the monthly report about the current situation of my fleet. Domeric said with a tired yawn as he sat on the main chair in what he called his meeting room, or planning room, as he met with his subordinates here on a biweekly basis and made plans regarding the future of his domain. He had been sitting in this meeting for the past 2 hours and was starting to feel the effects of his young body. Children were not supposed to work as hard as he did. He really needed to get even better at working on his delegation skills. But considering that he was the lord of the Bolton lands as well as the only wizard among his employees, there were many things that he had to do on his own. Things that just couldn't be delegated to others. Aunt Barbary nodded and took the list from Maester Wolken. The current Bolton fleet has 124 ships, 44 carrack that we bought from Bravos, 60 galleons that were created in our ship factory by our shipwrights, and 20 war galleys. That's what, 6 galleons more than last month? He guessed, and she nodded at him. Yes, the shipwrights had gotten more experienced at making ships in the factory. Along with the help of the new workers, they are now able to craft a galleon within 5 days. An improvement from the time when they were only able to craft one ship in 10 days. She informed him. Good. He nodded. Tell them to continue making new ships for me at this rate. With how successful the ice trade has become these past few months, I'm afraid we'll have to loan some trade ships from Redwine if we are not able to keep up with the demands. Then he turned to a blonde middle-aged woman with exotic features and asked, Selly, give me a report on the various businesses and the profits we're earning from them. Selly, the daughter of a very successful merchant who was captured in her youth and sold into slavery, and a woman who had a bright mind for business and was working as a CEO for his various branches in business. She said, we've opened 8 new bookshops in total in the past month, as well as 13 new ice cream shops. The business, as you guessed, is gaining more and more profit for now, and I don't think that we'll reach the plateau anytime soon. For now, we need to focus on expanding as much as possible. Here's the profits gained from the various businesses in the past month. She said and handed an opened ledger to him. Food, 57,638 gold dragons. Bookstores, 39,912 gold dragons, including board games and other things sold at the store. Cleaning supplies, 17,365. Soap, shampoo, etc. Ice, 28,570 gold dragons. Weapons, 12,856 gold dragons. Silver mine, 900,000 silver stags equals 4,200 gold approximate. Copper mines, 1,500,000 copper star equals 1,050 gold approximate. Glass, 27,874 gold dragons. Fleet trade, 8,314 gold dragons. Taverns, 5,617 gold dragons. Brothels, 9,154 gold dragons. Total profit, 212,550 gold dragons. So, he earned about 210,000 gold dragons in a month. That number was huge. Like really huge. From what he knew so far, even the Starks only gained about 4,000 gold dragons per month from the tax collected from their lands and the other lords. And the Manderleys also only earned about 10,000 to 20,000 due to their port. And those were the richest houses in the north. He was sure that the poor houses like Umber or Karstark only earned about 1,000 gold dragons per month. Compared to them, he earned a lot more. But then again, compared to them, he spent a lot more as well. Creating a town, creating roads, opening schools, building new ships, building a port, building canals, building an army, paying the sailors, etc. Took a lot of gold. About 120,000 gold. So, he was gaining about 90,000 gold dragons per month. But he wasn't discouraged in the least. After all, many of the things he was spending a lot of money on, like creating roads, building new ships, building canals, building public bathhouses, etc., were investments that would start paying for themselves after a time and start increasing his profits. And even then, he had stolen enough gold by this point that he had about 4.4 million gold dragons and 1 million Bravosi gold coins. With such a large amount of wealth in his possession, he didn't need to worry about running out of gold anytime soon. Master Nicho Nestoris, he spoke. My lord, the leader of the Guild of Glassmakers said, I want you to increase the production of the glass you make by 100% by the end of the year. 100%? My lord, that's entirely possible. I'll pay for the infrastructure you need to build more glass, and you won't lack any workers either. That's very generous of you, my lord. The man spoke cautiously. I know it's not my position, but do you want to further increase your glass business, my lord? No. he replied while shaking his head and took out a paper from his bottomless pouch and gave it to the older man. He opened the scroll and read through it quickly. This, my lord. Yes, glass houses. Like the one that we have in Dreadfort. He spoke. I want to make more glass, Master Nicho, but instead of selling the glass, I want you to hoard it and make new glass houses with them. I have already carved out a new piece of land with the city being built around Dreadfort. I want you to erect at least 100 glass houses within that piece of land. Everyone's eyes widened at his declaration. But, my lord, that would be very expensive? Unprecedented? Wasteful? He asked. You don't need to speak, Master Nicho. I know what I'm doing. Just complete the order. He spoke while looking into the man's eyes, and the man hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. Very well then. That'll be all, he said, and everyone sitting at the table stood up and bowed to him before leaving the room. Everyone except for his aunt. Dom, she said carefully, why do you want to build so many glass houses within the city? She asked. For growing spices, exotic fruits, rare magical plants, and coffee, he said. These are some of the things that can only be found in hot climates like Reach, Dorne, or Summer Islands. Once the glass houses have been completed, I'll carve runes on them to make them sturdy, so that they won't break easily while controlling the temperature inside. I know this new project to make so many glass houses might seem extravagant, impulsive, and wasteful, but I've given a lot of thought to it and have found that once they start working properly, we'll be able to make a good amount of profit from the plants we grow and sell within those glass houses. His aunt thought about his words and nodded at him. So, what kind of plants have you decided to grow in these glass houses? He took out a paper in which he had made the list of spices, exotic fruits, and coffee that he wanted to grow and started telling about it to his aunt. Chapter 78, Army Inspection I. Second bonus chapter of the week. Bolton Lands. POV of Domeric Bolton. Domeric was sitting on a horse and gazing at the roads that were being built within his domain. Watching hundreds of people working together to achieve a common goal on his behalf. There was just something sensational about that. Wherever he went, people would stop what they were doing and bow to him until he passed by. Yes, being a lord could be addictive. He could admit that to himself. Perhaps this was the main reason why Old Voldy wanted to rule Britain. To feel powerful and respected. The concrete road for the city to be built around the Dreadfort was almost complete. Now they were expanding the roads to the north, south, and east. To the lands of Umbers, Manderleys, and Starks. To be fair, he himself was a bit surprised by how quickly the work was progressing. He was sure the work would not have gone so fast even if he himself was at the head of this project. But then again, he supposed that this is what happens when you pick the right man for the task. This particular task of building the roads had been delegated to a slave that he liberated from Essos. A slave who was once under the contract of Iron Bank to build new real estate for the bank. Now, the man worked for him because of the gratitude he felt for having been saved from his status as a slave. He and his men traveled through the concrete road for half an hour before taking a sharp right turn and taking a dirt path leading to a small forest. After traveling for another hour on their horses, he and his men came out to a large clearing inside the forest that had been cleared to build a large building and 3 large training yards that could hold thousands of people at once. And within those training yards, he could see thousands of people doing drills right now. Is it just me, or have their numbers increased once again? His aunt asked from behind him in a subdued voice, and he could see that even she was a little stunned by the thousands of men working in order while following the command of their officers at once. They've increased. I conscripted 500 more men for the infantry, so it's 3,000 infantries now, along with 1,000 archers and 500 cavalries. Training so many people, feeding them, and accommodating them wouldn't have been cheap, his aunt complained, and she was correct. Training an army of this size cost him about 4,500 gold dragons per month. And that was only because the food, clothes, and weapons for them were coming from his own lands. Otherwise, creating an army of this size would have cost him about 8,000 to 12,000 per month. After all, building and sustaining a professional army in Westeros was no joke. Especially one that was equipped as well as these men. As they stood atop the hill and looked down at the men going through the drills, their presence was soon noticed by the commanders, and the general of the army broke apart to come and greet them. "Little lord," General Bronze said with an exaggerated bow from atop his horse before he gave a more serious bow to his aunt. "My lady, how is the training of the men going, General Braun?" He asked the man whom he had scouted due to his vast experience as a mercenary and someone who had a lot of experience in the actual battlefield. Bronn was not the only mercenary-turned-soldier working under his command. In fact, the ranks within his army were filled with mercenaries and other veterans of the war who had a lot of experience in actual battle. After all, he might have his own ideas about creating an army, but it would not work without the feedback of someone who has actually taken part in a battle and knew how the whole war thing worked. Can't believe I'm saying this, but the lads are coming along well. Better than I had expected, General Bronn said as he looked at the soldiers marching together in a formation before turning to face him. For someone who has never taken part in a real battle, you seem to have a lot of good ideas about forming an army. He shrugged in response to Bronn's words. After all, how was he going to tell them that he had based this army of his on the model of the Roman Empire army from back on Earth? Are you here to enjoy the sight, or do you actually want something? General Bronn asked him. Because if you want hospitality or some shit like that, then I'm afraid you've come to the wrong man. His aunt bristled at the crass words of the man, but he knew that despite his insolence, Bronn was highly loyal to him. This was just how the man talked. Nothing more, nothing else. After all, it would be the height of stupidity if he went to a great length to form an army but then didn't make sure that the general was loyal to him. As good as it would have been if you had offered us some bread and tea, you're right. We're not here for that, he said and moved his horse forward toward the training area as his men and General Bronn followed after him. I'm here for some of your men. Admiral Murin is having some trouble hunting down the pirates from around Sisterton and fighting the whaler ships from Ibbenese intruding upon our domain at once and has asked us for some support. Domeric said, this is also a decent time to bloody our troops and give them experience in actual combat. You're right in that. Most of the lads here are green as piss. And no matter how much you might train them here, they won't become veterans without actually participating in a war. No matter how much you train, war is something that you just can't replicate. General Bronn spoke, Varco making a noise of agreement from behind him. But before that, Domeric said. Chapter 79 Army Inspection 2. Bolton Lands. POV of Domeric Bolton. But before that, Domeric said while turning the horse towards the wall parallel to the training grounds. How are the studies of the men coming along? General Bronn grimaced at his words. Not very good. Tell the lads how to take an axe and chop a tree and they'll do it. No questions will be asked. But tell them to sit straight in a class and they start to gossip like fishmongers. Half of them fall asleep while the other half can't concentrate. He grimaced at those words. Maybe the course he had selected for the men was a little too hard and the degree of difficulty had to be reduced by a few notches. After all, he might have a vision in his mind about the perfect army. But he knew that reality and imagination were two different things by now. And as much as he wished otherwise, he knew that the literacy rate in his domain was not even at 1%. Something that he was doing his best to change. I'll come back with the maesters at a later date to revise the course for your men. Still don't see the point in learning to read and write. General Bronn grumbled, but he ignored the man to gaze at the army in front of him. General Bronn, he said, what are your opinions on building a regiment of horse archers? General Bronn thought about his words for a while before shaking his head. Hard, very hard, expensive and time-consuming. Bronn replied. Training a cavalry regiment on its own is a hard task. Do you know how long it takes a man to learn how to ride a horse? And then teach the same man to wield a lance or a sword while doing so? Well, it is 10 times harder to teach them how to ride a horse and use a bow and arrow at the same time. It is not something you can do without lots and lots of training. In fact, the only people who are good at it are the Dothraki. And that is because they've been living their entire lives on horses. So, unless you're ready to invest a lot of gold and time in this thing, don't even think about it. I see, Domeric said and went into deep thinking about building a new regiment of horse archers within his army. After all, he knew that if he was able to train a regiment of horse archers, then they would be able to do a lot of damage on a battlefield thanks to their mobility. In fact, if used correctly, then horse archers held the potential to destroy a whole army as a support group. Not to mention that the horse archers could be used as messengers, for scouting, or for harassing the enemy. Yes, Bronn might be correct when he said that it would take time and gold to create horse archer regiments. And he was lacking in none at the moment. There's another thing I need to inform you about, General Bronn. But we need to change the location first. Follow us. After said that Domeric, his aunt, and his men rode their horses to the lonely hills. After they arrived at the location and preparations were made, Everyone in the group watched in stunned silence as the armored giant used his giant-sized sword to cleave through tree after tree without any difficulty. Domeric gulped and wondered if he might have gone a bit too far in enchanting the swords and armor for the giants. But then he realized that this was just his irrational fear. The giants might look scary, and boy, they did look scary, but they were loyal to him. Maybe even more loyal than the men working under him, considering how the giants considered him their leader after he defeated Mag the Mighty. By the old gods, his aunt muttered, when you told me that you were going to arm these giants. She tried to speak, but words wouldn't come out of her mouth. He could understand her shock. After all, the armor he'd designed for the giants covered their entire body from head to toe. Even the weak points that existed within normal human armor were absent in the giants' full-body armor with the help of magical means. At this point, the giants were walking fortress in their own rights with hundreds of pounds of armor on their bodies. Armor that weighed 10 times less in reality due to the magical runes carved on them. All this meant that there was no way a human soldier would be able to kill the giants. Not without the help of a magical sword. In truth, he wasn't sure if his magical enchantments would hold against a Valyrian blade. But even if they didn't, how likely was it that the giants would face a Valyrian steel sword wielder during the war? And even if they did, how likely was it that the swordsmen would come closer to the death machines that were the giant and kill them without dying themselves first? I'd heard that you brought some giants from the north of the wall, General Bronn commented, but I didn't believe it. But you really did it. You crazy bastard. Watch your tongue, Sellsword. His aunt warned, and Bronn held up his hands in surrender. Give these giants a war hammer and I believe that they'll be able to break down the weaker walls of small to medium-sized keeps and castles on their own. Varco told him from behind. Looking at these giants, I'm starting to wonder if the men I'm training would be of any use. General Bronn joked, even when the both of them knew that despite their grandeur, 30 giants would never be able to replace the infantry of an army. After that, they stayed silent for a moment and just watched the destruction wrought onto the tress by the fully armored giants before he spoke. So General Bronn, I want you to think about all the ways these giants could be used on a battlefield and write a detailed report about it with the help of the teacher I sent for you. Yes, my lord, Bronn grumbled, but didn't say anything more as they turned around and went back the way they came from. Chapter 80, Half-Brother. Third bonus chapter of the week. Dreadfort Castle. POV of Domeric Bolton. Domeric looked into Briar's eyes and sent another legitimacy probe with the efficiency of a hammer as he tried to forcefully extract her deepest memories from inside her mind. To her credit, Briar had gotten used to the pain that came with her training and only flinched a little but didn't move or close her eyes. He paused and came out of her mind. Again, he said, and when she nodded, he sent another painful probe into her mind. Something that he'd realized a while ago about these people was that despite their ability to control the animals and birds with minds, they were not wizards and could not perform the magic like him. It was also the reason why none of them were able to create occlumency shields despite how hard he practiced his legitimacy on them. But even if they weren't able to create mind shields to oppose him, the wounds suffered by their psyche allowed them to grow after a while, which in turn led them to be able to control their animals and birds without much effort. When he came out of her mind, he found her panting and clutching her head in slight pain. The fact that she was showing any sign of pain at all meant that she must be in a huge amount of pain. But if there was another thing he'd have learned about these people, it was that they had a very high level of pain tolerance. He stayed quiet and allowed her to recover. Once she did, he asked again. She nodded, and when he was about to send another powerful probe in her mind, they heard a knock on the door. He frowned. He told his subordinates not to disturb him until they had finished their work or unless they had something important to report, which meant that they had something important to report, as he knew that his subordinates were anything but incompetent. Enter, he said softly, and a few seconds later, the Raxa opened the door with a sheepish expression and allowed Lyra to enter the room. Lyra, he said, greeting his spy mistress. My lord. She bowed, showing a generous amount of cleavage to him while doing so. What is it, Lyra? If you're disturbing me right now, then it must be something important, he said. Get on with it then. My lord, she spoke once again. But this time her voice was a little cautious, as if she was afraid of telling him the news. But before Domeric could tell her to hurry up again, she continued. The king is hosting yet another tournament in King's Landing. He waited for her to continue, but when she didn't, he rolled his eyes and said, King Robert holds these tournaments every 3 months or so. That is one of the main reasons why the realm is under so much debt. But you're not here to tell me about the tournament. So whatever it is, just go ahead and say it. I promise I'll not be angry at you. My lord, she spoke, we've found a boy. In a village some distance away from the Dreadfort. We've found that the boy is the bastard son of late Lord Roose Bolton. His eyes sharpened at her words. You're saying I've a half-brother somewhere out there, and I've not known about it until now? He asked, a hint of anger in his voice even as he told himself that he promised not to get angry at her. Still, he held family in the highest esteem in his mind, as it was something that was robbed away from him in his past life. The reason why he killed Roose Bolton was that the man was a psychopath who tortured people regularly in his dungeons for his amusement. And also, despite taking this new body, he never saw the man as his father. But Aunt Barbary had shown him more love and care than his Aunt Petunia ever did and became a sort of pseudo-mother for him in this world. So, to know that he had another family member in this world, and he didn't even know about him, was upsetting. Apologies, my lord. Very few people knew about the bastard son of late Lord Roose Bolton, as he had hidden this from everyone except his most trusted people, she said. The only reason we were even able to find out about the bastard boy was that his mother came to our castle door a few days ago begging for some stipend to raise the boy. A few days ago, and I'm only hearing about this now, he said as his eyes once again sharpened at his spy mistress, a little upset that she had hidden such a thing from him. Apologies, my lord, she said quickly. I wanted to make sure that the woman spoke the truth before I could give the news to you. There are, after all, times when the women among the small folk try to pass off their children as the bastards of lords even when it is not true. I see, he said, controlling his misplaced anger. And if you're telling me now about all this, then you must be sure that the boy is my half-brother. Lyra nodded and Domeric got up from his chair and looked at Briar. We'll continue this session tomorrow, he told her, and then turned to look at Lyra. What is the name of my half-brother? Ramsay Snow, she replied. Is he in the castle right now? He asked. They're staying in the Sleepy Eye Tavern outside Dreadfort, she informed him. Very well. Take me to the boy then. He spoke and the woman hesitated for a moment before she bowed and led him out of the door, Varco and Raxa quickly following him as his sworn shields. As they walked through the halls of Dreadfort, he could feel Lyra hesitating about something. So he stopped and turned to face her once again. You've something else to tell me, he said with confidence in his voice as Lyra and the others stopped with him. Go ahead. Let it out. To her credit, the woman only hesitated for a moment longer before she continued, My lord, are you aware of the rumors surrounding the Boltons before you changed everything? He furrowed his brows and tried to think of what she could have meant. Then it clicked and he said, about the Boltons still flaying men in their dungeons and wearing the skin of their victims. The thought of wearing someone's skin nauseated him despite his gruesome experiences from his past life. The fact that his father truly used to torture people in the dungeons, and that the Bolton ancestors truly wore the flayed skin of their victims as intimidation tactics left without any rebuttal. Yes, those ones. Well, you might want to know that there are rumors about your half-brother being a little off in the village he lives in. Off? In what way? He asked, a little cautious of this half-brother of his even as he tried to hold judgment about the boy before truly meeting him. The rumors say that he butchers wild animals for fun, and rumors that he uses the dogs in his possession to hunt down the women of other villages. She spoke cautiously. Only rumors? He asked, and she hesitated. 3 girls have gone missing from the nearby villages in the past year. She spoke, not saying anything more about this matter. He thought about all of this with a heavy heart before he turned to his sworn shields, Varco. Raxa, you'll stay behind me during my meeting with this boy. Since I'm the only true Bolton left in the world, the boy and his mother might likely try to kill me through some nefarious means. If they do, then I'll more than likely find out. And on that occasion, I'll give you the signal that we've prepared for such an occasion, and you'll act to subdue both the mother and the boy. Varco nodded at him in his usual stoic manner, and even Raxa showed a strangely mature sight for once and nodded with a serious expression.